I wrote the TTRPG combat book everyone has been talking about. Combat is a major topic of discussion for the tabletop community. There are so many videos, Reddit threads, forums, and online stores for this kinds of stuff, and as a good game master, I went through them all. But while I was consuming all of this knowledge, I ran into a few major problems. A lot of these were high concept advice, difficult to navigate, mainly for D&D, and AI had some limitations. That is why I wrote my book, 100 Creative Combat Conditions, to tackle all these problems for me and hopefully for you. I've watched every one of those combat guide videos on YouTube throughout the years. These were all very helpful and the creators are amazing. I'm a huge fan of them all, but every time I watched these videos, I felt like something was lacking. The common criticism is that D&D combat just becomes players attacking a monster while in a white empty room. So they all talk about adding interesting choices, adding time pressure, alternative objectives, choices. Like, that's all great, but what kind? What kind of timer, what kind of objectives, and what kind of choices? So my book gives 100 concrete ideas on how to make your combat more engaging. Note the word concrete. I'm not just saying add interesting terrain or interactable objects, I'm actually giving you ideas. For example, combat condition number 86, wrestle in the Fountain of Youth. I basically put a Fountain of Youth in the middle of the battlefield. That fountain provides buffs or healing to whoever stands in it. Now people will fight over that spot to have an advantage in the encounter. Participants will be shoving, grappling, and pulling each other away from the fountain, and they might even use root spells to bind their enemies to the ground. The fight is no longer about just dealing damage, but also about positional control. Or maybe combat condition number 34, three-legged race. Now I call it a three-legged race, but maybe your party is locked in a prison cell and they are handcuffed together. Now they have to think about how to move around together. Two-handed weapons will be at a disadvantage, but raising a shield maybe helps them both. So players now have to pivot their strategy based on these new limitations. And I have 98 more concrete ideas you can use in your games. But do I have to read all 100 conditions to find the right one? That is my solution to challenge number 2. So I was able to find some 20-page PDFs to buy and Reddit threads about combat ideas, but they were pretty bare bones. Again, just talking about alternative win conditions and adding pressure. Some officially published adventure paths do have interesting fights. Fist of the Ruby Phoenix from Paizo for Pathfinder 2nd edition has this maze where you can collect coins as an alternative objective. And there's like a 2D platformer fight in a ruby tower, which is really cool. Questonomicon from XP to level 3 has this fun moving train fight, so if you fall off the train, you're hitting the ground at high speed. Storm King's Thunder had a fire giant tomb where you could actually ride a minecart and survey the battlefield before you engage anyone in the dungeon. But these seem to be the exception and not the rule. Also, instead of finding one or two ideas after reading hundreds of threads and dozens of books, I just wanted one place that I can read them all quickly so I can use the ideas whenever I need. Which is why I divided my book into 8 conditions. Nature conditions, dungeon conditions, those kinds of stuff are pretty self-explanatory, so I'll just go over a few. Meta conditions are the ones where real-life players get affected. One example would be the amnesia condition, where characters have amnesia, so the players can't look at their character sheets. Pop culture conditions are rules that might reflect some pop culture games. Did you know there's an actual Korean children's folk game called Squid? The show didn't really do the game justice because it's supposed to be like a 4v4 wrestling game instead of like a 1v1 knife stab out, so you'll get a more accurate experience with this book. Finally, no duh plus conditions are ideas I commonly saw online, but with my own added twist. Instead of just having traps in a fight, why not let your players be the ones to set the traps? Now it's a Home Alone situation. If you're in a cage fight, why not make it a 3x3 cube cage fight with each fighter in one of the 9 cages? So this book can help in any setting or story. If you're looking for a forest fight, just look at the nature conditions. If you're having a boss fight coming up, look at the boss conditions. But nothing is stopping you from reflavoring the dungeon fight into an urban fight or making the Fountain of Youth into a modern day bathhouse. I give you some ideas and advice on how to recontextualize the fights to fit your adventure module or homebrew game. But when you do have the time, I would skim through the whole book to see how you can change things around. I mean, you can even mix and match and add multiple conditions into a fight to make it more complex. I play a lot more games than just D&D. I love Dread, Mass: A New Generation, Monster of the Week, Pathfinder and Starfinder 2nd Edition, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well. So I didn't want to make another D&D guidebook, so I kept the conditions flexible enough for everyone. But that flexibility also allowed the book to be balanced. My philosophy when balancing these conditions were to affect friends and foe. If you have a moving firewall, your players and the enemies will have to avoid them. It isn't just your party members being handcuffed, the enemy gangs in the prison are as well. The combat conditions are not just one-sided, so the damage and difficulty rises for both factions. So this isn't a book about what kind of damage a trap should do or what kind of debuff it should apply. Your system will have its own afflictions and its own damage math, so just use those templates. But again, you don't have to worry too much about the exact numbers because it affects everyone equally. I did test a few AI engines to see if this book is pointless, because if you can just ask it to spit out 1,000 ideas, why do you need my 100? So I asked multiple engines if they could provide me with ideas on how to make my D&D combat more fun and engaging. Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, AI just copied what the other websites were saying, and that is a problem because that is why I wrote this book in the first place. I even fed it my ideas and asked it to make similar stuff, but it couldn't. I think the problem is that AI isn't human, so it doesn't have like dopamine sensors, so it doesn't know what feels fun or unique per se. They just assume things are fun based on some checklists, but it doesn't feel right. So I guess my book is safe for now. So those are the 4 problems that this book solves for my TTRPG combat troubles. If this is something you were looking for, it would be amazing if you could buy a copy from the link in my bio or descriptions. But I also believe in giving and not just doing a sales pitch, so I'm actually releasing these ideas for free on my social media channels. Every week I post one idea from the book and another side tangent talking about the condition, so I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, and YouTube. But if you want to have a convenient PDF of all of them right now and would like to support my efforts, please check out my book 100 Creative Combat Conditions. It's on DriveThruRPG, itch.io, Etsy, Gumroad, and Amazon. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope the book helps y'all.